Hello everybody. Today's lesson we will be working on solving equations, and learning objective is to be able to solve one and two step equations. Okay, now when it comes to solving equations, again, just like with the last lesson on substitution, this is a key part of algebra. It's one of the most basic parts, but when you have some knowledge on this topic, it opens up the sort of the gates for a lot of other topics within algebra, and it is one of the most basic topics, but at the same time, as I said, it is very important. Now if you have a look at some of the keywords, they're similar to the last lesson and the previous two lessons, simply because you were using the same terms, the same sort of ideas, the same concept. Okay, also, like with the last lesson, if you look on the right side, there is a big question there, which we won't be going through in the lesson. But if you have time at the end of the lesson, I want you to try this question, because it will help you to kind of see where you're at in terms of your understanding on this topic. To start with, I'm going to go straight into an example. And we have been given a question here where we know x, so it's an unknown number. We're just calling it x. You could call it a or b or c or whatever. We're calling it x. When you add 4 to it, it becomes 9. So x plus 4 equals 9. Now, I want you to focus on that plus 4. So we're focusing on the symbol and the number, because this is what we're adding on to x to make 9. So if we focus on that plus 4, now we want to do the opposite of plus 4. So I want you guys to think, what is the opposite of adding 4? I'm sure some of you would have noticed or realized that the opposite of plus is to subtract, and the opposite of adding 4 would therefore be to take away 4. Okay, now because we've done this to the plus 4, we need to balance it out, because if I take away 4 from one side, the equation is not balanced anymore. I have to balance it out. Therefore, I must also take away 4 from the 9, okay, to balance it. I've taken away 4 from both sides, and I will be left with 9 take away 4, which is 5. So therefore, my answer must be x equals 5. And if we use our substitution skills from the last lesson, you can see that, okay, if x is 5, what's 5 add 4? It's 9. So the answer is correct. Okay. One more example here. This time around, we're saying x take away 9 equals 20. So we are again focusing on the subtract 9, and we are going to do the opposite of taking away 9, which is to add 9. Okay, now now that we've added 9 here, we need to balance it out. So we're going to add 9 to the other side of the equal sign, which is 20, and 20 plus 9 equals 29. So x equals 29. Again, you can try substitution to see if it's correct. In this case, of course, it will be as well. So I want you guys, this is not the main task. You don't have to take pictures of this. I do, however, want you to practice these simple questions before we go into the harder stuff. So have a go at 5 from red, 5 from green. Okay. And I want you guys to note your answers down. I want you to pause the video. I'll be giving you the answers all together, just so you can check your understanding and to see if you're not making any mistakes. So pause the video, have a go, and we'll come back together shortly. Okay, so we should have answered at least 10 questions, 5 from each. And I'm going to give you the answers here. So just check that they are correct. Okay, so these are what our answers should have been once we had done the opposite of what the question was asking us, and then obviously balance it out by either adding or subtracting the same number from the other side as well. Okay, same sort of simplicity, but slightly different. In this case, we don't have an add or a subtract or anything. We are told that 2x or 2 lots of x equals 8, and if you think about it, what the question is asking us, it wants to know what x is on its own. What is one letter or one of those letters on their own? So we just divide it by what the number is in front of the letter. So for the first question on the left, the number is 2. So we're going to divide by 2. Now, to balance it out, we must also divide the other side by 2. So we're doing 8 divided by 2. Now, 2x divided by 2 we know is x, and 8 divided by 2 we should know is 4. So the answer would be x equals 4. I want you to pause the video, have a go at this simple example on the right, and we can come back together for the answer. So just pause the video, have a go. Okay, so the answer we should have got simply dividing them both by 7, and we would have got 35 divided by 7 is 5, and obviously 7x divided by 7 would just be x on its own, so x equals 5. These two questions slightly different in the way they look, but the idea or the way you answer it is exactly the same. All that's happened is we've switched the number over with the algebraic term. So now it's saying 36 equals 9x. That is still the same as 9x equals 36. Okay, it's the exact same thing. We've just switched the numbers around. It looks a bit confusing, but it really isn't. And in this case, we are going to divide both sides by 9, because there's 9 lots of x, which is why we're dividing by 9. And then we can answer it by saying 36 divided by 9 equals 4. So x equals 4. I want you to pause the video, have a go at the one on the right, and we'll come back together for the answer. Okay, so we should have got an answer of x equals 8. Okay, x equals 8. I want you guys, again, same as the mini activity we did on the last couple of slides, I want you guys to pick 5 from each and try those questions. So pause the video, try those 10 questions in total, and we'll come back together for the answers in a few seconds. Okay, so we should have answered 10 questions at least, and here are your answers. Okay, now at this stage, if from your 10 questions that you've done on this task and the 10 you did on the previous task, if you've made more than 3 mistakes in each, I want you guys to you're gonna have to rewatch the examples again on this video, but also to watch the MathsWatch clips on solving equations. Okay, so you just need to basically understand what is going on, and the fact that you have to balance out. So whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you need to do the same thing to the other side of the equal sign to balance it out. Okay, moving on, this is the main part of the lesson which I wanted to focus on. This is where we are solving with two-step equations. Okay, so there's 2 steps that we have to do here. Now I want you guys to read this question, and then I will go through the example. So I'll give you a few seconds to just read the question. Okay, so what we should have read was that on one side, so namely the left side of the scale, it's telling us 2x plus 5, and the other side, there's 21 marbles in there specifically. Okay, and if you think about it, really, without the scale, it's an equation which says to us 2x plus 5 equals 21, because the weight of them is equal. Okay, now the first thing we do is we identify the whether there's a plus 5 or minus 4, or we identify what we're adding and subtracting. Okay, now we know that it's plus 5, so the opposite of plus 5 is to subtract 5. So what we will do to start off with is we'll take away 5, and if you notice, if you look on the scale, those 5 marbles are being taken away. Now in order to balance it, we will also take away 5 from the other side. So we've taken away 5, so now the scale are still weighing the same. Okay, if we didn't take away this 5 here, then it wouldn't weigh the same anymore. The 21 would be more, and therefore the equation is not balanced. So we had to take away 5 from there. Okay, so what are we left with? What are we actually left with? If you look on the 2 scales, we should be left with just 2 bags, and each of those bags is x, so therefore we're left with 2x. And on the other side, we're left with 16, because there's 6. Once you do 21, take away the 5 marbles, we should have 16 marbles left. So we can say 2x equals 16. Now, similar to the last task where we just did, we know what to do now, but I'm going to explain, as this is my example to explain to you. So we know that 2x equals 16. And how many x's are there? There's 2 x's, so we must now divide by 2. But hold on, if I divide by 2, look, I've just got rid of that bag on the scale. It's not balanced anymore. How will I balance it? I need to half or divide the 16 by 2 as well. Okay, and once I do that, I should be left with how many marbles there? 16 divided by 2, but if you count the marbles there as well, there are 8 marbles left. Therefore, one bag is equal to 8 marbles, or X in this case equals 8. Okay, so that was just visual example. Okay, so similar to the last slide, except without the illustrations or the weighing scale. If you have a look at these two questions, first things first, we need to identify from the question 5x plus 6 equals 21. We need to identify what are we adding or subtracting in this question. So clearly you can see we're adding 6, so we are going to do the opposite of that, which is to subtract 6. And to balance it out, we are going to take away 6 from 21. What will we be left with? It will be 5x equals 15. Okay, now in order to work out what x is, we identify what is the number that is in front of the x. The number is clearly 5, so we now must divide by 5. Okay, but to balance it out, I'm going to do the same with the other side, and I'm left with x equals 3. And that would be my final answer. I want you guys to pause the video, have a go at this question here, and then we'll come back together shortly with the answer. So pause the video now, have a go. Okay, so we should have answered the question, and it should be in the format that I have answered the question above. So we would have started off by adding 7 to each side. We would have been left with 4x equals 12, and now we just divide both sides by 4, and we would have ended up with x equals 3. Okay, now imagine, just to be on the safe side, if you wanted to check that your answer was correct, you could simply just substitute in. So you could say, okay, my x equals 3, so 4x is 12, 12 take away 7 equals 5, and that is your proof that it is correct. Now, this is the main task for today's lesson, and what I would like you to do here is try all 8 questions. The red box are the easier questions, and obviously the green box, they're slightly more difficult. What you need to do is write the question out, model it the way I've shown you in each of the examples, exactly how I've shown you how to do it, and I want you to take a picture of your working, so the question, the working out, and then obviously your final answer. The way I want you to give your final answer is whatever the letter is. So for example, the number 1, it's 3a plus 6 equals 15, so your final answer should be a equals, and then whatever number you think that is. And for number 2, it'll be b equals, and whatever number you think it is. It's important you do it that way. So make sure you show all that working, and take a picture of that, and upload it onto your class charts, and your teachers will obviously mark it and give you some feedback on that if they need to. Okay, all right, thanks for tuning in, and see you in the next lesson.